Most of us are using ChatGPT, but the big question is, are we using it in the correct way? Our job as recruiters is to really ensure that the candidate is getting the best possible experience. At Loop, we like to work in experimentation. So how can AI enhance what we're doing on a daily basis? And now I ask everyone that I speak to, like, is it okay if I record this session? So if I show any signs of bias during the interview and I'm not objectively asking the right questions, it will tell me after. Funny thing is, I've started rolling it out to hiring managers who I felt were biased. But all of a sudden the tool started telling them, hey, you're a little bit biased towards communication. Look at the skills and the competencies instead of the energy that you're getting from a person.
What about if people aren't really on board with using it?
The question is, what are you going to do 5 years from now? If someone's new, they don't know that you can't ask about age, you can't ask where someone's from, all those typical questions.
Yeah.
And now we can actually check that. There are a lot of tasks we can automate within recruitment, bring that down from 60 minutes a day to 10 minutes a day.
Talking more about interviews, you've got a very interesting technique. On how to
I'm
do
experimenting.
I love it. Please tell us more.
How can we make it more engaging? So I bought this little device. It's called a Stream Deck. It just helps your storytelling and showing them something that they've never heard of. What I do is...
What an exciting time to be a recruiter and be in HR and making our jobs more technical.
Yes.
Leandro, welcome to Talent Exchange Podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So, according to my research I did last week, around 88% of companies worldwide are looking to or have already implemented AI for HR and recruitment processes. You've been testing quite some tools, correct? For HR and recruitment.
Yes.
So what tools are enhancing our processes and maximizing them, and what tools perhaps we should avoid and not use?
Sounds like fun to me. Let's go for it. So let's start about AI, right? I mean, that's been the buzzword 2023. It's been AI, it's been LLMs, it's been ChatGPT. And I think most of us are using ChatGPT. But the big question is, are we using it in the correct way? And the most important thing to remember with these kind of tools is the input equals the output. So it's really, really important people start to understand how to do prompting. So, for example, have you used ChatGPT so far in your day-to-day?
I think every day.
Every day.
For multiple different things. I'm just testing it for like recruitment purposes as well, but also for daily things as well, for scheduling and stuff.
So let's talk about the recruitment purposes, right? When you start writing a prompt, how do you structure that?
I try and speak to ChatGPT, first of all, in a positive way, because we don't know how it's going to become in the future.
Yeah, so you're afraid of the Terminator showing up.
Yes, I am, to my house. But also I'm conscious about what information I put in, because I've heard, for example, I think it's Tesla, that their employees can no longer use ChatGPT because they were spilling too many secrets and it was leaking data, for example. So I'm really conscious about what I put in. And I kind of address it as if it's like a friend, like, hi, can you please help me with this on this tone of voice, for example, or can you simplify this? Basically, that's my prompt.
Yeah, and I think that's a good start. You can make it better, though. So there's a lot of frameworks that you can use in order to start prompting. Simple ones like Erase. What my favorite is the Co-Star. And basically what that does is divide your prompts up into different sections, right? So the C stands for context. So you start with giving context. Why are we doing this? You give it an objective. You talk about the tone of voice. You talk about what's the expected output that you expect from GPT. One of the things that GPT is not very good at is to continuously give you the right output that you have in your head, and to do that over and over again. So you need to guide it as much as possible. And I've written prompts that are like 2.5 pages long in order to really get the output that I want. And I think that's the start. That's where everyone should start, is understanding how do you craft a good prompt and how can you get consistent results, as consistent as possible, at least, right? So that's the very first step where I would advise everyone to start, being a job seeker, being a recruiter, anyone working with GPT. And then as soon as you have that, start thinking about, can you build your own GPTs to make your life a little bit easier?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yes.
So you still use the tool, but it's more personalized.
Yes.
For
So
yourself.
once you go for a paid subscription with OpenAI, So I started with a personal paid subscription. It's like $20 a month, 24 actually. You are given the ability to build a GPT. And what's the difference is that it's basically an agent that will remember your prompt.
Right.
So what have I used it for? I actually built a scorecard generator. So we do a massive amount of interviews over at Loop Earplugs. And there were a couple of things, like having to speak with candidates back to back doesn't always allow you to edit your notes, do your scorecards. So you're a little bit late with submitting them. When you're late, you're going to forget things. So I see you recognize that.
Yeah.
So what I've done is create a scorecard generator. I now ask everyone that I speak to, like, is it okay if I record this session so I can use a transcription? And I only need to copy and paste the transcription, and it gives me the standardized scorecard. So it looks at, I gave it training material, for example. It looks at our constellations, which are our values. It has our salary house with the expected behaviors per level. It has more information about Loop, basically everything I could find on Loop. And it is accurate for about 90% of the time. So there's some small editing that I need to do, but it basically even tells me like this candidate is on this salary level, which is usually what I also think. So where I know we're aligned, but it also has a bias indicator, for example.
Okay.
So if I show any signs of bias during the interview and I'm not objectively asking the right questions, it will tell me after. And I can keep that either in mind or adapt it for the next one. Funny thing is, I started rolling it out to hiring managers who I felt were biased. But you know how it goes. You're talking to a hiring manager. They never feel that they're biased. They feel that they're fair. But all of a sudden, the tool started telling them, hey, you're a little bit biased towards communication. You're looking at the wrong things. You have to be more objective. You have to look at the skills and the competencies instead of the energy that you're getting from a person. And that really helped me to steer the hiring managers in the right direction.
That's great, because then it's a tool telling them as well.
And that's different than you and me doing that.
Exactly. We can try and educate managers into being less biased and doing more fair interviews, but it's great to get a third party involved.
Yes, definitely.
To enhance your point.
100%.
So that's really interesting. That's definitely something I'll look into in the future as well. Any more tools that could help us? I know that MetaView's kind of on the...
Yes, MetaView's on the rise. I'm looking into MetaView right now. I think for note taking could be great, especially for quality assurance, I would almost say, within the hiring squad, to be able to look back at an interview that maybe a junior interviewer had and go through it together to see where can you improve, for example.
Yeah.
But also the debriefing moments. If you have a debriefing moment with the hiring team during your assessment period, you can just actually see the interview happen. And if people have doubts, you put it into the search field and you actually go back. So you're evidence-based and a lot better than just anecdotal, right? So yeah, looking into MetaView, and for me, it will be even cooler if I can start linking MetaView to a ChatGPT, to my ATS, which we're using Greenhouse. So I think that's where most of the people should be looking at.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be necessarily all the different kinds of tools. It would be more like, how are you gonna link them together? So you don't have to manually do the work.
So the agent that you've created
Yeah.
kind of sounds like what MetaView's doing already, right? Because you've created that prompt, it already knows it.
The thing is, it's a lot cheaper than MetaView. That's one. So we bootlegged it. So at Loop, we like to work in experimentation. So the first experimentation was, would a tool like this allow us to get the time to submit a scorecard down? Would it increase the submission rates? Because it's also not 100%. It should be. It's not. And we tested that hypothesis. It's working. So now the question is, would a tool like MetaView bring the same consistent value that we've been able to create with the GPT agent? And we're looking into that.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't need to just have a lot of tools for the same thing, right?
No.
You can just simplify it.
Exactly.
Going back on your point about reviewing, junior recruiters' interview skills or hiring managers, for example, could that be seen as micromanagement in a way? I understand that it's useful for professional development, for personal development as well. But it could be used in that sense, right? To see like what are people asking,
It
or
could.
I could tell them
Yeah.
what to ask, etc.
Yeah. So I think there's always two sides to a coin. I rather see it as quality assurance. Like our job as recruiters is to really ensure that the candidate is getting the best possible experience. So I would love to see if a hiring manager, for example, or an interviewer is asking let's call it the forbidden questions that we have in HR. If someone's new, they don't know that you can't ask about age, can't ask where someone's from, all those typical questions.
Yeah.
And now we can actually check that. If a candidate comes back to me like, I didn't really feel that interview, there was something off about it, I can actually go back and check it and check, hey, is this from the candidate's perspective or was there actually something that can be improved? So I'm a big believer in growth mindset. So that's why I see this as quality assurance and giving the ability to the hiring team to just become better over time.
Yeah, I was just thinking back at examples when I've had situations with candidates saying, oh, your recruiter acted like this, or the interview went like that. And yeah, whose side do you take? Because you're blind, you were
don't
not
know.
there.
Exactly.
So actually having some evidence would provide some more insights, and you could do a better job, as a manager, performance manage or help your team member to see why they did it like this, or go back to the candidate and, kind of reiterate, explain the situation.
Exactly.
Just so you don't have bad blood.
Yeah. And we need to realize that as recruiters, we're doing this all day, every day. Our hiring managers and the interviewers aren't. For them, it's a part-time thing that some may do twice a year. Others do that a little bit more consistently. So in order to maintain quality, you'll need to start working somewhere. And I think this type of tooling is a great way to start doing that. Yeah.
And how's it been going with hiring managers in your team with regards to introducing tools very often? Have they been on board? Are they
super on board? Like at Loop, we have looked at the AI revolution. And the cool thing is we have founders that are very invested into this. So we have the challenge, everyone within the company, to look at how can AI enhance what we're doing on a daily basis. So we do that at talent acquisition, of course. Marketing does that on their stuff. I'm looking, for example, into teaching hiring managers. If you get a email from a candidate asking for an update and you don't know, there could be, instead of coming to me, you could actually build an automation that goes and checks the status in Greenhouse, then writes an email in GPT, puts that as a draft in your Outlook, and then you just need to review it and hit send. So those kind of things really make life a lot easier.
So if a hiring manager doesn't have access, for example, to Greenhouse, would that still work?
I would be worried if my hiring manager wouldn't have access to Greenhouse. Yeah.
I've worked in smaller companies before where the ATS was only, some seats just for the recruitment team and HR.
Yeah.
So like the hiring managers wouldn't have access and we would be the communicators.
Yeah. It wouldn't be my ideal solution. I have to say. Why? Because you're limiting the information. I've never encountered that.
Really?
It would be interesting, yeah.
You worked at big companies then?
I've been fortunate, yes. Yeah.
What other tools have you tried that have really stood out and you thought, shit, this is revolutionary?
So let's assume it's a high volume company, right? You're getting tons of applicants in. Looking at a CV, I think the myth is we do it for 7 seconds.
3, I heard last time.
3 even. Well, I hope I do it slightly longer. But it takes time. We've had... I'm thinking back of a rec that I did for an influencer marketer. We had 933 applicants. You can calculate how much time that costs. That's insane.
For one position?
For one position, yeah. And we only got a few people to business case and there was one offer out and the rest, we didn't proceed with the rest.
Yeah.
So you need a tool for that. So we're implementing something that's called Mojo Hire. So what Mojo Hire does, it's basically looking at kind of resumes, but instead of doing keyword matching, which a lot of tools do, and it's not necessarily optimal, it also looks at the context. Like, hey, what are transferable skills? What type of companies have you worked at? These kind of things. And then it just gives you a list of, hey, who's hot, warm, or cold? So as a recruiter, I can start by just the most probably successful candidates, save myself time. And if I really feel like, hey, we have a list of 10, 15, I could look at the rest, but you know how it is. We also have to think a little bit on the return on investment here.
Yeah.
So if I'm confident my hire is in that first selection, then I could just send an email to the rest, like, hey, it's on hold for now. Might come back to you later. And ideally put them in the talent pool, of course, instead of just rejecting them.
It doesn't reject this tool, right? The other candidates.
So the tool itself doesn't reject.
That's
It gives the power to the user. I mean, if we look at the history of using AI in talent acquisition, there's a famous and infamous story on Amazon. I think it was back in 13, 14, something like that, where they did this type of CV screening. Totally backfired. Totally backfired. Why? Because of obviously there's biases built into the software. It made mistakes. It was way too early for AI at the time. We don't want to completely outsource this type of work.
No.
What we want is to make recruiters' lives easier.
Yes.
So if you can just get a pre-selection and you agree with that pre-selection, then you don't need to look further. And that's what is making it easier. But we as recruiters, we need to look at the candidate. We need to validate that the tool is actually right.
Yeah.
And then actually move the stage.
Yeah.
To the
And we
next
can look in more detail if it's just 10 or 15 instead
Exactly.
of 900. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so after testing all of these tools and rolling them out, are there any specific tools that, you know, if I was to look into, that I should avoid, I shouldn't give time of day?
There's always tools like that. Let me bring in the tool that I just recommended, Mojo Hire, right? So we're implementing them. I think they're great, but there are a few caveats to using it. For example, what have I discovered? The tool looks at the job description. What do we do at Loop? We enhance the job description after a hiring manager writes it, right? Because the job description is an ad. In the end, you want to attract the right candidates in. So you want to repel the wrong ones and bring the right ones in. If you're then asking a tool to base the selection criteria off of that, it will be quite biased and not know what you know as a recruiter. What makes a recruiter good is you understand the hiring manager.
Yes.
Right? You understand what they're looking for. You understand their preferences. Even though we might not always agree with them, we do understand them. So that's the type of functionality that I'm in chats with them about building in. So, for example, a kickoff form. Can you upload a kickoff form next to the job description so the tool and the algorithm start to understand the nuances that we understand as humans?
Right.
So, for now, good tool. It's going to be great if it really understands the nuances. So, if you're not ready to take that risk, don't do it. But I'm pretty sure they have it on their roadmap. They're going to roll out something cool soon.
Yeah, I think when we're implementing tools, just speaking from like a manager's position, we expect it to be perfect already. And AI has really, well, it's been around for a long time, but ChatGPT, for example, has only kicked off in 2022, 2023. So it's still not perfect.
We're scratching the surface as we speak. So, I mean, yesterday came out that Claude now surpassed ChatGPT. So most people only know ChatGPT, but there's a couple of actually very good AI models out there. You have Claude, now you have Claude 3, you have Gemini from Google as well. And it's a rat race for them. So every time that, for example, Claude surpasses GPT-4 in benchmarking, we already know that OpenAI is going to probably release GPT-5 somewhere over the summer, which will most probably blow them out of the water again. And then Google comes in. So I think it's a win-win situation for all of us. But it should also make you critical about which models are you using for what, because usually those models are good at different things.
Right.
For example, Claude's very good at reading documentation for you. If you want to summarize a research paper, great, way better than GPT.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things, and you can think about AI switchboards, for example, working with a company that's possibly building that for us. You can just do a prompt and get the output from all the different models, and you pick, hey, which output do you find best?
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, just scratching the surfaces of what we can. And AI back in the day is not the same as now.
No.
Like, it used to be singular purpose AI built to do one thing very, very good.
Yeah.
And we now expect Gen AI to do everything great. That's a totally different ballgame.
So if I was just starting out, I shouldn't just go with the most popular one, ChatGPT. I should try Claude. I should try Gemini.
It will depend on what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
And then try it out and see what kind of output is most reliable to you. But if I were talking to a student that needs to work on papers and research, I would definitely say, hey, check out Claude. GPT is okay, definitely not the best there. And Gemini is bringing out some new stuff. So let's see first how that goes. And then you still have Copilot.
I was going to say Copilot.
Copilot's still a thing. I know a lot of Copilot fans. I don't think it's there where it needs to be yet. But give it a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I do think they will catch up with the big three. I would say the big three being GPT, Claude, and Gemini.
Yeah.
And Copilot is coming closer and closer. But it's difficult in the sense that they're rebuilding the whole software suite, integrating with AI. You're going to have bugs. And again, we need to be patient. Rome wasn't built in a day.
No. And we've been working without it just fine.
I love working with it though.
Yes.
It makes my life so much easier. Yeah.
I want to now try Copilot, Gemini, and Claude because I only knew about ChatGPT, to be honest. I only learned about Copilot very recently. Yeah. I know that it's much more employee friendly because it's integrated within Microsoft if you use Teams already.
Exactly.
For example, and it's quite user friendly. You can just put a prompt, like just ask a question like, where can I find this? And it just gives you a list. So that's definitely, if someone's inexperienced with prompts or just wants something ASAP, it's a very easy tool.
In theory, it is. It still needs some refining. So
like
don't expect too much. That's my thing. Like the demos look great. Demos look amazing. It doesn't work like the demos right now. So that's where I would manage people's expectations, basically.
Yeah. And what about if people aren't really on board with using it? Have you had, situations where people are like, oh, I'm used to working this way. I don't want to get on board with this.
Yeah. So then my question is, what are you going to do 5 years from now? How do you think the world's going to change? And if we look back at the horse and carriage and the car mobile, right?
Yeah.
People didn't want to lose their horse. But hey, if you have a car, you're faster, you're then more reliable. You don't have to stop to feed the horse. Well, kind of, but it's a 5 second, 10-second thing, manner of speaking. Big changes within society will always lead to anxiety.
Yes.
Because we don't know exactly how's it going to work out. We don't know. I mean, if we look at, for example, Figure01, have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, so Figure01 is a robot that has been built and now integrated with OpenAI. So it talks to you, it sees you, it can do chores at home, for example.
What's
Tesla,
it shaped like? Does it have
it's a humanoid. So it's a humanoid. We are living in a human world. So having humanoid robots that have hands, that have feet, kind of makes sense because they adapt a lot better than, let's say, you would make a spider-type robot that crawls around.
Oh my God.
But the fantastic thing is it understands context. You can talk to it. In the demo that they showed, they had an apple on the table, for example. And the human asked, hey, give me something to eat. There were several things on the table. The robot picked the apple. Why? Because it knows it's edible, right? So I know that Elon's also working on Optimus. So Tesla has a robot. The estimated cost is going to be about half a car. So let's say 20K. But how cool would it be if you have a robot in the house that does all of the boring stuff for you?
Yeah.
It will do your laundry. It will basically do anything that's, let's say, boring, clean your house, etc. It will give you so much more time to focus on what makes you human. Right? And your creativity and your downtime and enjoying the ones you love. So there are big changes coming.
That's how we should use AI and tools to automate the shit stuff we don't want to do instead of, but we can also use it to maximize and enhance what we're currently doing as well.
It gives you different angles. Right? So for example, what I love to do with GPT is if I have certain thoughts about a topic, I actually talk to it. So I don't know, I'm not sure if you already tested it, but if you have the app, you can use the voice assistant.
I've been afraid of it in case it uses my voice in the future for something.
So for now, I think you can trust OpenAI to do that. What you also have is if you go for a Teams or an enterprise, then all of the data that you put in stays in a secure place, so it's not leaking out.
Okay.
But I talked to it. I've had an hour-long conversations with OpenAI using voice, sometimes doing the dishes even, like just saying, hey, I have this issue. I'm thinking about addressing it this way. imagine for example, I love Chris Voss, Daniel Pink, these kind of authors.
Yeah.
Pretend you're them. What kind of advice are you going to give me? And then you're getting a lot of different perspectives on the same thing. And that fuels your inspiration at a certain point. So for me, it's great to just get inspiration as well.
Yeah. I also find it a bit vague sometimes.
Tell me, how vague? Why vague?
In the early days, I did use it to help me, for example, craft LinkedIn posts. And you see this repeatedly now on LinkedIn because it starts with, hey, folks, and it has a million
Horrible
rocket emojis and fire emojis and any type of emoji we've never used before. But if you just write in it, for example, like, write me a viral LinkedIn post about diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't give you any personality. And that's where we as humans come in.
Yeah.
So I do find it a bit vague sometimes. So I have asked it for opinions like, oh, I want to use this or this product.
Yeah.
Which one, in your opinion, would work, for example? And it's just really subjective. It doesn't really say like, oh, you know, based off this evaluation or research, I would go with this one. It just gives you both and lets you decide, which is good because then I'm still using my brain.
Yeah.
I'm not completely inhuman.
Yeah.
But it would be great, you know, if we were like having a conversation, if it had a bit more of a, I don't know, GPT personality. But I guess that would be.
It's up to you to give it. So GPT is subjective for a reason because it's designed to mimic a human, and that's what we do. We're subjective, right? And what you just mentioned about having the very standard hateful type of post that happens because we didn't train the model. So let's say again, you go for a paid GPT account, you create a post generator, and what you do is you put in all the content you've ever written in your own style. Conversations you've had maybe on Teams or Slack with someone, emails. So it learns who you are and then ask it to only refer to your own tone of voice and keep it that way. And then becomes radically different as well. So
it'd be helpful for people who are like CEOs, chiefs, or traveling all the time if they need automated emails or messages.
Yes. Yeah. So you need to train it. If you want better outcomes, you need to really improve your input. Again, shit in, shit out.
Yeah. So it could become like a VA, essentially, a virtual assistant.
Yeah, it could, definitely. And there's companies out there leveraging GPT models to do that exact thing. Yeah.
Yeah, especially, so that also comes in with a different topic, which we could talk about all day, about will it ever replace jobs? People say, absolutely, it will. Other people are like, no, it would just automate the shitty, boring tasks. People are very 50-50 about this.
Both are true. It will replace jobs. Look at machines now in factories, right? We have machines in factories. They're replacing jobs. Have they replaced every job within a warehouse? No, they haven't, right? Same will go for GPT as well. So there will be companies that will really fully automate certain jobs, and there will be companies that decide not to. So no, I don't think it's as radical as some people think, and the whole doomsday thing and what we do. I mean, I'm a little bit older. I'm 35 now. I remember the Y2K and when people were like, okay, the internet's coming. What are we going to do? There won't be any jobs anymore. We still have jobs. It's just new jobs start popping up. So think about the prompt engineer. It's a job right now. Honestly, I don't think you'll need a prompt engineer in 5 years.
No.
Because the model will become so good that, yeah, it's a nice skill to have right now. You need it. It's not going to be a job in 5 years, but there will be something else to replace it again.
Yes.
And that's how the world keeps turning.
So just being adaptable with your skills, your mindset as well.
You have to have a growth mindset. Yeah.
I saw recently Elon in an interview, because he gets asked this a lot as well, like, will it replace jobs? And his opinion was yes. And one day there should be kind of a state rule where everyone should get an income. So like,
universal basic income,
yes,
right?
Exactly this. And I'm not going to go into detail. You can watch the interviews yourself, but it was really interesting to see that. So that would also allow people to either become specialists again and niche down and have jobs, and other people to maybe, not use their brains anymore, be very lazy and, say, oh, AI took my job, I'm just going to get welfare.
I mean, there's always going to be people like that.
Yeah.
Right? I think for people who want to take matters into their own hands and still be in control, you need to be on top of the game. Like, for example, recruitment now, right? There are a lot of tasks we can automate within recruitment. But if you learn how to do it, how to automate it, and you're the person on the team, are they going to replace you, or they're going to replace the recruiter that's just being overwhelmed by the AI madness, right? That's a choice that you have. And I really believe that going into and critically thinking at your own workflow, like the example I gave earlier, let's say I'm answering candidates' emails an hour a day, right? Do I really need to do that? Or can I find the automation that will make that possible? So I only have to approve it. So bring that down from 60 minutes a day to 10 minutes a day. What are you going to do with the other 50 minutes? I'm going to call people. I'm going to connect with them.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help me bring them in at the end. And I think that it will allow us to go back to what we're really good at as recruiters, and that's looking for a connection.
Yeah. What tools do you wish existed since you've been researching? Have you seen a gap with what you've been implementing?
So I'm gonna throw a very fresh idea at you that I actually had last night. So I was thinking, right now, for companies that are a little bit popular, like Earplugs, quite popular, let's say we have tens of thousands of candidates. We can only hire a bunch of them, right? And what do we do at the end? We send them an email and say, hey, I'm sorry, it's not, we don't have a position, it's either filled or whatever it is, and basically wish you good luck with finding a new job. You're sending out an email that has a 100% open rate that you know people are going to read. So where can you start profiting off of that? What if you start thinking about linking the candidates that you couldn't hire to other jobs at other companies where they might be a great fit? And what if you can get a fee over that, for example? So again, the world's really good at looking at waste, material waste and stuff, but this is information waste. You have great candidates. Why don't help out your candidate? And if they land that job, you help out yourself as well. So there's so many things you can think of. And I think there's still a lot of possibilities.
You could format it like a newsletter and have links at the bottom, suggestions.
You could, yeah.
More personalized approach to a rejection instead of the standard automated message that everyone hates, including myself.
Yeah. So what I try to do with my candidates is it depends on where they are in the funnel. If they're very early in the funnel, yeah, it's a template. It's just too many people. You can't personalize it. But after they spoke to a human, it's either you call them back or you send them a very personalized email. Yeah. So I also have a GPT for that. So I built a GPT.
Tell me.
So I built a GPT that basically ingests all the feedback throughout the interview process and gives not only the feedback to the person, but the big question is, what can you do to reapply within a year and then be successful? So what do you need to change? What do you need to learn? Are there any books, courses, whatever that they can look into? Going in that direction, it takes a little bit of time, but again, that person will remember you.
Of course.
And what we do is all about relationships and building those relationships. So I've had a lot of very happy and grateful people because of that. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think if you're a recruiter and you're listening to this, even myself for my new position, I definitely want to implement something like this because you really stand out instead of sending an automated message and making everyone angry and vent on LinkedIn like, I got another rejection.
And there is a risk because not everyone's always open to feedback, right? So some people are like, yeah, I don't want to know. I made that mistake once where I started giving feedback on the phone. That person really didn't like it. So good to ask and have that also as a follow-up email. So that's something I'm still testing and seeing like what's the exact way of delivering the news. But if you let's assume that they are open, they'll love it.
So maybe even including it as a prompt, as a rejection, like, oh, would you like more personalized feedback? Yes or no? And then
if they send back yes, you could build an automation that again goes to your greenhouse, goes to your OpenAI, and creates that email for you. And just again, don't automatically send it because I wouldn't trust it. 100%.
Yeah.
But create it as a draft, put it in your draft emails, and then create a folder in your Outlook that says feedback drafts. And you go there
Yeah.
once a day, you double check it. Okay, it's fine, send. That's it.
But what an exciting time to be a
It is.
recruiter and be in HR and making our jobs more technical.
Yes.
It sounds, I'm really like feeling lots of energy from this.
I love
And
it.
I can't wait to just implement all the things that you've said. Talking more about interviews
Yeah.
and what recruiters are implementing at the moment. So you've got a very interesting technique on how to
I'm
do interviews.
experimenting with
I
an
love
interesting
it.
one.
Please tell us more.
So I was inspired by the gaming community, actually. And you see these kids online doing games, chatting with people, being very interactive with them. And it got me thinking, like, how can we do that more in an interview? We're doing most of our interviews online. So it's not necessarily the most personal thing instead of looking at someone. So how can we make it more engaging? So I bought this little device. It's called a Stream Deck. It's from a company called Elgato. And that's what all the gamer kids, streamers use. And what I do is, or trying to do, is to, during an interview, instead of telling people how big is our company, how have we grown, who are the team members, actually show them. So it's a virtual layover over your camera. So there's no screen sharing. You don't have to push any button within your Teams or Slack or whatnot. Just people still see you, but let's say that I'm introducing the company and I'm talking about our products. So we sell earplugs. We have a range. I can tell you about the range, but I can also show you. I can hit that button and all of a sudden you see our range popping up. You see a video playing in the background. So a little bit like a TV talk show host almost. That's kind of the idea. What I love is talking to team members, for example, asking them, hey, record a 10-second video just introducing yourself. So people know who they will be working with. What's the vibe? What kind of people are they? Do you envision yourself working with XYZ? So again, hey, this could be your potential manager. Here's a message from them. You click and then the video starts playing as well. So there's so many different ways. I think the danger there is overkill, of course. You don't want to turn it into a game show. So that's the part that I'm still testing.
And how has it been going so far? Have you received positive feedback, mixed?
They love it. They love it. I remember one that was memorable was an offer conversation. And then I had the number pop up and then all the benefits sliding in one by one and filling the screen. I mean, I'm lucky to work for a company that can do that, obviously.
Was it bullet points? Was it visual?
It was visual. It was visual benefits. And they loved it. They were amazed. They were like, oh, it's so much. And then it also looks like it's so much, even the small things, because you're adding it to the screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, people felt very engaged and they've never seen it before. So you're also playing with the innovators there. Yeah.
And has it been easy to get employees on board to record the very quick videos?
Not yet. It's me and one of my colleagues testing it. The videos, some were on board with it. Others said, I'd rather not appear on video, which I also understand. So it's something that we're trying to figure out, like, what does it take to get someone to just do a short introduction? And of course, you'll have your introverts that are super easy to convince and the introverts that might need to see it in action in order to be convinced.
Yeah,
right?
show them an example of what you've done.
Exactly. So it's a little bit of a 50-50 split there. Yeah.
I guess you get more commitment from the candidate because they see everything firsthand in the first interview. Does it cut down interview stages?
It doesn't necessarily do that. It just helps your storytelling, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea. It's just enhancing the experience that you have and showing them something that they've never heard of. So we basically went from 10 years ago, we were calling candidates within 15 minutes, then we got stretched to 30, 45. And now it's like, hey, let's bring you on this journey. These are the values. You click, you see the values, you give examples, you show videos, you show people. Right? I can talk about people, but if I show them, it's a very different way of connecting.
Yeah, we expect, well, not we, I'm just saying as a general community of recruiters, we normally expect candidates to tell us their stories, sell themselves. We need to do it back because they're starting to get more options.
It's a two-way street. Despite the market changes that we've seen, and we're seeing instead of a candidate-driven market, it's becoming more of an employee-driven market. I I still believe we need to find the right match. And if you're looking for the best talent out there, they'll have options. So how are you going to set yourself aside? And this is one of the ways you can start doing that.
And guaranteed longevity as well, because they can see who the team is, how you operate.
They will talk about you at that birthday party and
Recommendations
say,
as well.
hey, you know what I did? I had a conversation with a recruiter and he did this and that. Da, da, da. That's just branding right there.
Yeah,
Just
you'll
going
stand out
back
as
to
a
basics.
company.
You will. Yeah. And it's super easy. The device costs you like $100. It takes you a little bit of time to set it up. The software is free. So it's more about investing the time and understanding and deciding how you want to do it and make it your own, than that it's not a hefty investment at all.
It has quite a lot of buttons, right? So how do you...
It has 15 buttons in total, and you can program them however you want. And again, this is the same device you can use for this, but you can use it for everything, for automations. The automation we talked about earlier, you could trigger with basically a button.
So it's easy to install, it's easy to use,
Super
you
easy.
can customize
They
it.
should sponsor me, I think, now.
Yeah. Sponsor the podcast too, But it's incredible that you saw an opportunity with a hobby that you have, so gaming, and you took that and put it into your day-to-day working life, and it's dramatically improved. And
the first test results are really good, so hopefully we'll be able to do it on a larger scale to just really test the hypothesis that we have.
Yeah.
But I'm very confident it will be a game changer for that first conversation. Yeah.
So with all the cool tools and the Stream Deck that you've told us about as well, how will this impact job hunting and applications?
So how are you going to set yourself aside in a world where you're competing with hundreds of others, where AI is screening your resume, and it's increasingly difficult to connect directly with a recruiter, because honestly, my LinkedIn is messages upon messages piling up, people wanting to connect, and I just simply don't have the time to reply to everyone, which is quite of a shitty feeling, but we have to be realistic. I just can't end my job and reply to everyone. And be a dad in my personal time. So you have to find ways. For the job seeker, it's really important to understand, what does the company value? How can you stand out? You do your research, you look at the job ad, you look at the people that are working there. Look at, for example, let's say you're thinking about a job at Loop. Go to our LinkedIn page, you look at who's working there. You find the people that could potentially be your colleagues. So let's say it's the recruiters or the social media managers. You go into their account and you're going to analyze, how does it look like? What do they have that I don't? Or what do they have that I do have? So how big is that chance? How successful could I become? And can I tweak my resume for it to fit that perfect picture? Right? So not only the job description is one, and everyone's telling you tailor your job description, totally true. But look for additional information. Look for podcasts, for example, where CEOs, founders, leaders are talking about what they find important. Leverage that information. Look at profiles from the people already working there. How close are you to that, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of information can really help you to tweak and enhance and get your foot in the door, basically.
And with tools like Teal for job seekers, and I can't remember the name of the one where you can spam apply, the Chrome extension.
I don't remember the name. I do remember it. I would
Simplify.
totally hate it. I think it was that. I'm looking for ways to block that, basically, on our website. We're looking into, do we need to add the standard spam bot filters, like you do the puzzle or you type in a word. The danger of AI is we're going into a world where AIs are going to speak to each other instead of humans, right? I don't have the exact answer yet. And I do appreciate if someone uses AI, for example, let's say LinkedIn pictures. If you are not super comfortable in front of a camera, I'm okay with that. If you put your picture into an AI generates a professional business photo for you, great. No issues with that at all. If you put zero effort into creating your resume and if I have an interview with you and I notice that it's like a balloon and I just pop it within a second, you've wasted my time, right? So you have to use the tools to your advantage,
Yeah.
but you need to know what you're talking about. And I feel like having an AI doing, I think it was like 5,000 applications a day.
5,000.
Let's say you become successful. Let's say the tool is great. And all of a sudden you have interviews for the next 50 weeks. It's not necessarily the best thing. It's the same thing as spamming. You'll have conversion rates. But is that really good qualified leads? Or do you prefer to have just the jobs that you really want?
Yeah.
Right? So it's a choice. Not my choice though.
So if you're a job seeker and you have this tool, you've heard it first from me and Leandro that companies are already looking at potentially blocking
Oh, yes.
these applications. So that could hinder your progress.
No.
And it could even blacklist you from applying in the future.
And we know when you've applied in the past as well. So we have serial appliers. That's not sure if you encountered this, but in many companies we have that just apply for everything. And once I see that, I'm like, okay, first off, you have no idea what you want to do. So I'm looking for really motivated people. I'm looking for high performers. And if you just applied for 9 jobs at my company who have nothing to do with each other, your next application I'm not going to even look at. So you're really setting a bad precedent for yourself.
Yeah. It makes it seem like you don't really know where your skills lie. Exactly. You just want to get into the company.
Yes.
For some reason, for the sake of it.
And maybe I would be okay with that if it's like a student, first job, you're not sure. But in that case, try to describe that in your cover letter. Try to get to a recruiter, how difficult it might be, right? But even better if just getting to a recruiter and go to the hiring managers directly. Look who's hiring that job. They'll usually post that on LinkedIn and share like, hey, I'm hiring for this role, or hey, my team is hiring for this role. Ask for advice. Ask for 5 minutes of their time.
Yeah.
And you would be surprised. A lot of people will make 5 minutes for you.
Yeah. A lot of people are seeking mentors at the moment within their fields to pick their brains.
They are.
I'd like to pick your brain now. I went to the LinkedIn Talent Connect event in Munich a couple of weeks ago, and the lead engineer flew all the way from California to present us the new features for this year. I want to know your opinions about this. So alongside the Boolean search recruiter seat, you can also do some kind of, I don't know the exact name of it. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of like storytelling. And this is a simplified way to find candidates. So for example, instead of writing the inverted commas, I don't know, Ruby engineer, Amsterdam, etc., you just write what the hiring manager has asked. So for example, I'm looking for an SEO specialist, ideally located 5 kilometers within Amsterdam, etc. And then it does the whole search for you and recommendations. I can see positives with this. For example, for startups, scale-ups, companies that don't have recruiters, huge benefit. The hiring manager can just do it. And I can also see massive flaws with this. But just overall, what are your thoughts about this implementation?
It's great on paper. And that's been my thing, especially with LinkedIn. Like they rolled out a couple of features I got really hyped about, really excited. Started to try them out, and they got oversold to us massively. For example, the AI that they have with messaging at the moment. I tried it. I won't do that anytime soon.
The in-mails.
Yeah. So if I decide to reach out to you, I will at all costs avoid, hey, my name is Leandro. I work at Loop Earplugs. That's the worst opening line you could have. And that's exactly what it writes. Why? Because it's based on all of the data they've collected over the years. And of course, a lot of recruiters will send that exact message. Doesn't mean that you're successful at that. And what people need to realize is that's your hook. That's a preview that people see in their notification bar. So why waste it on your name? Why not make it about them? Right. So, and those are the kind of things that the LinkedIn AI still needs to learn. So for me, I really want to see it in action before I get super hyped about it. I would say most recruiters were already used to Boolean, but again, Boolean is a small part of it. Describing your ideal candidate, there's a difference between what you think your ideal candidate is and what it actually is. So can that AI give the same pushback as a recruiter? Can that AI guide you through your search the same way as a recruiter? So yeah, it would be good for smaller companies to try it out. But if it doesn't give you the feedback, like, hey, okay, this is the profile. There are, I don't know, 125 people. Okay, out of the 125 people, let's say we have a conversion rate of 20%, and then we still have the funnel. There's not many left. So as a recruiter, I would say, what's really important? What's your minimal viable candidate?
Yeah.
And until the LinkedIn AI solutions start doing that, I'll look at it, but I'll temper my expectation a bit.
It's also for job seekers or anyone, candidates.
Yeah.
It's important to know that this could select you in the search, or it could boot you out completely because you didn't put those exact words on your profile.
And I think for job seekers, what I miss a lot of the times is how they made impact in their company. So most people write a CV, a LinkedIn profile, and they write about what they did. Okay, that's great, but I'm not very interested in what you did. I want to know what you achieved. And I think that's the easiest thing that everyone needs to go back to their LinkedIn today.
Yes.
And change that and show me what was the impact. If I'm talking about a recruiter, I want to see how many hires did you do on average a month? What's your conversion rate?
Yeah.
What kind of projects did you do that either saved the company money or gained money? I think I have in my own example that within the first 100 days that I joined Backbase, I spotted a flaw, let's call it a flaw in the recruitment process that I automated. And it basically saved the company over 100,000 euros a year. I find that way more interesting, and it gives room for a recruiter to start asking you about, okay, so what was the process? How did you do it? And that's something we can talk about instead of, yeah, I worked and I recruited people. Yeah, okay, that's what we all do. You don't stand out. So your impact's how you're going to stand out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bullet points as well. Easier for us to digest.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. I see that mistake all the time. And also with the summaries, that new LinkedIn AI auto-generated summaries, which is again like, hello, I'm Daisy. Welcome to my profile. And it's like, it gives me the ick. Cringe. It's like, tell me, if I go on your profile, I want to see how you can be an addition to my company or my team, or what's special about you. Like, why you?
Exactly.
Not just generic. So that's another AI feature LinkedIn did that I'm not a fan of. Or the AI generated titles. As well.
It's difficult. The thing is, LinkedIn knows that they have a monopoly. There's no other professional social media platform out there, which would be my challenge to people, like create one, because we desperately need one. But they're not in a hurry to innovate. Why would they? They're comfortable.
Yeah. Do you think that they'll roll out their own ATS one day? That's a topic we've had before.
I would avoid it, most probably. What would I? That's the question, actually, because we've been looking at this over at Loop, and I believe one of the things that we all say we do in interviews, but we actually don't, is candidate rediscovery. And a tool that I mentioned before, Mojo Hire, is really helping us to do that. So, for example, if I open up a draft in my ATS, open up a job in my ATS, put it in a draft, I could quickly scan my tens of thousands of applicants I already have on my database to see who would actually be a good fit for this job that we've spoken with in, let's say, the last 12 months, and reach out to them even before putting anything live.
Yeah.
So ATS rediscovery combined with LinkedIn could be interesting, especially when you know that, hey, they visited your profile in the past, or they're following your company or whatnot.
As like a sidebar, like the similar profile to you. That'd be great, like recommendations.
Yeah, recommendations based on the activity, and you have that a little bit in LinkedIn Recruiter, but it looks especially all at follows company. But I would be way more interested in, hey, is it also connected to people in the company? Are they closely connected? Like, do they speak to each other? Yes or no? Again, also some privacy questions there, obviously, that will pop up. But I would love to see some more innovation on that side.
Yeah, it'd be great to see how AI could look at posts and see like, do they have your values
Yeah,
as well
yeah,
included in that search
exactly,
that they're implementing?
exactly. And with the whole rise of LLMs, it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. Like it can extract that kind of contextual information. So yeah, again, you can build the GPT for that too.
Amazing. So that's also the importance of being active, posting, commenting,
Yeah.
because potentially that could become a thing.
Yeah, you're a brand. Everyone's a brand because you have a face, you have an identity, and that's what a brand is. So the question is, how comfortable are you with putting yourself out there? And I can imagine not everyone wants to be on camera, and that's
No.
fine. But share your thoughts, and even if you don't want to write original content, at least start commenting on people's posts. Share your ideas there. And that already really helps to be seen, to be noticed, and to connect with like-minded people as well.
And it'll make our jobs easier too.
A lot easier.
Some final thoughts then for those listening and for myself as well. With everything that's going on, with all the things you're implementing and, you know, I'll implement in my future company as well. Do you think there will be harsher regulations with like GDPR compliance or like AI rules, HR policies, for example?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have the AI Act that just passed in the European Union.
Oh, right.
So that's a very important one. Recruitment is usually in the high risk category. So become best friends with your legal department. I already am. So hey, Herman. It's going to be increasingly difficult for us to work with certain tools because the magnifying glass has come. So it's really about finding certain loopholes as well, because what we do is quite of a gray area. And if you look at GDPR wise and ATSs, does everyone send an email after 12 months to your candidates asking, hey, can I keep your data? Rules and regulations are quite vague. Yeah, you can keep the data as long as it's deemed necessary. But what's that term, right? You ask different lawyers, you'll get different answers. So it's really about cooperating with your legal department, your compliance department, and really understanding as a company where you want to sit on that spectrum.
Okay, so I should, before downloading a tool, looking into a tool, I should consult my compliance, legal, and HR departments perhaps prior.
Before connecting it to any sensitive information, that's what I would do. You can play around with it in a safe environment. So for example, I know Greenhouse has a sandbox environment, other ATSs might have as well. So you could put dummy data in there and just try it out. See if you can get any value out of it. And only when you start seeing, okay, this is valuable on a small scale, I want to roll out, then the legal circus begins. And because that can take a while sometimes.
I was going to ask you as well. So alongside your job, which is very busy, as you say, you get multiple applications for each position, and also your Stream Deck style interviews, which might be time consuming. How do you fit in implementing and testing tools alongside it? Because I'm just trying to picture how I would do it, and how do you fit that in your day?
Making time. So for me, time blocks helps. So I'm not interviewing all day, every day. I try to really have blocks of time, let's say 20% of a week to work on projects. And right now, AI takes a big chunk of that time as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's equally as important. Of course, getting people on board is important, but also making processes automated, more efficient.
The thing is, we need to learn how to scale, and especially now we're in a high scaling environment. So if I can save us time by using certain tools
and money as
well, then down the line that you'll get that back 100-fold if you do that well.
So companies, listen up. Give us the time.
Give us the time. Make the time. You have to make the time. It has to be a conscious decision, and you have to have leadership behind it. Fortunately, we have, and otherwise you're not going to make it, and you won't put a dent into it. But look at scheduling. We have about 10 recruiters working at Loop. Let's say that we have a coordinator that does that 20 hours a week. We have recruiters that do it at least an hour a day to call candidates and find spots, and we can easily save 1,500 to 2,000 hours a year
Wow.
on scheduling alone. So start doing the math there. And that's why it's so important to have a few hours a week to play around with new technologies.
So, Leandro, if I'm a recruiter that wants to pick your brain about everything you've just spoken about, or a candidate who wants to work at Loops Earplugs, how can I reach out to you?
Easiest way is always LinkedIn. I'll try to check in as often as I can. It can take sometimes a few days, but LinkedIn is always the easiest.
Do you use the automated reply message on chat?
I try not to. Because I still like to really go for it on LinkedIn. When I get a message, I do automate outreaches, of course. But inbound for now, I'm still trying to do that personal.
Have you experienced it yourself? Other people doing it?
Oh, yes. And then I know that they're using an automation, and that's what sort of diminishes my excitement. That when I get a message, I want you to feel that, oh, like, yeah, hey, Leandro's responding, he's making time for me, instead of just that 1 second response. And then like, I don't know.
At the beginning, I was like, that's cool. I want to do it. But I spoke to one person and their message kept coming because it was a brand new message each time. So I got like 20 automated replies and then she would reply herself. So I was like, the novelty's worn off, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool if we can create the virtual Daisy or the virtual Leandro through something like OpenAI that can carry that very first bit of the conversation. But again, LinkedIn's about making a connection. And that's a choice that we'll have to make. For now, I'd rather still take some time out of the day to respond to everyone, even if it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I might have to.
I wouldn't put it past LinkedIn to automate this, because for people who might need it, for example, like recruiters or business owners who are very busy, they normally have assistants, right?
Yeah.
Replying to their emails, replying to their Instagram DMs, etc. So I wouldn't put it past them to make it kind of like a AI chatbot, essentially. Like, is your question relevant? Is it gonna be answered?
It can definitely answer the first, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah.
That's fine. We can skip that part. Then it comes to the question, and is it a standard question that you don't need me? Like, for example, hey, do you still have that vacancy? I can build a bot that can check that online and give you an answer. Can you make 5 minutes for me? Because I'm a student, I'm not sure which direction I want to go into. I want to be the person that replies to that.
Yeah. Or if someone's trying to sell you something, or like, can I work with Loop? Can I have some jobs? I'm a recruitment agency.
Yeah,
I'll probably make a bot. Like, nope.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Leandro, this was amazing. I've also learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners, whether they're recruiters or job seekers, have learned so much from you today as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.